Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome back with me, Miss Ira, in the presentation of CEFR, or Common European Framework of Reference of Languages, Learning, Teaching, Assessment. Okay, today we are going to talk about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 entitled Task and Their Role in Language Teaching. Okay, let's begin the presentation. All right, these are the table of contents. The first one is task description. The second is task performance. And the third is task difficulty. Let's move to the first subchapter, task description. All right, what is task description? What is task? Okay, tasks are a feature of everyday life in the personal, public, educational, or occupational domains. Okay, task accomplishment by an individual involves the strategic activation of specific competences in order to carry out a set of purposeful actions in a particular domain with a clearly defined goal and specific outcome. A task may be quite simple or extremely complex. And then a particular task may involve a greater or lesser number of steps or embedded subtasks, and consequence, the boundaries of any one task may be difficult to define. The second subchapter is task performance. Task performance, okay. In this subchapter, we are going to talk about competences, conditions and constraints, and lesson strategies. Competences. Tasks of any kind require the activation of a range of appropriate general competences, for example, knowledge and experience of the world, sociocultural knowledge, skills such as intercultural skills, learning skills, and everyday practical skills and know-how to do something, okay? Successful task accomplishment may be facilitated by the prior activation of learners' competences. And then conditions and constraints. Performance is affected by certain task-related conditions and constraints which can vary from task to task. And the teacher or textbook writer can control a number of elements in order to adjust the level of task difficulty upwards or downwards. Okay, and then comprehension task may be designed so that the same input may be available to all learners, but different outcomes may be emphasized quantitatively or qualitatively. The input text may contain different amounts of information, of degrees of cognitive and or organizational complexity, or different amounts of support may be made available to help learners. A text may be listened to or read as often as necessary, or limits may be imposed. The type of response required can be quite simple or demanding. In the case of interaction and production tasks, performance conditions can be manipulated in order to make a task more or less demanding. Next, we are going to talk about strategies. In carrying out a communication task, an individual selects, balances, activities, and coordinates the appropriate components of those competences necessary for task planning, execution, monitoring or evaluation, and repair if necessary, with a view of the effective achievement of his or her intended communicative purpose. And then strategies, just like general and communicative, provide a vital link between the different competences that learner has innate or acquired and successful task what is it? Completion. And the third is task difficulty. Task difficulty divided into two, learner competences and learner characteristic. And the second is task condition and constraints. Okay, learner competences and learner characteristics. The learner's different competences are closely related to individual characteristics of a cognitive, affective, and linguistic nature, which need to be taken into account in establishing the potential difficulty of a given task for a particular learner. The factors are cognitive factors, affective factors, and linguistic factors. We are going to talk about cognitive factors. Cognitive factors based on task familiarity and skills. Cognitive load may be lessened and successful task completion facilitated according to the extent of the learner's familiarity with. Okay, the first one is the type of task and operation involved. The second is the themes. The third is types of text or genre, interactional schemata or script and frames, and the necessary background knowledge is like assumed by the speaker or written or writer, and the relevant sociocultural knowledge. And what about skills? Okay, skills. Task completion depends on the learner's ability to exercise or learner skills. Inter alia, the first is the organizational and interpersonal skills. The second is the learning skills and strategies that facilitate task completion. And then intercultural skills. What about cognitive factors? Cognitive factors is ability to cope with processing demands. A task is likely to make greater or lesser demands depending on the learner's capacity to handle the number of steps or cognitive operations involved and their concrete or abstract nature, and then to attend to the process demands of the task, amount of one-line thinking, and to relating different steps to the task to one another, or to combining different but related tasks. And the last is affective vectors. Affective vectors divided into self-esteem, state, attitude, involvement, and motivation. The first one is self-esteem. A positive self-image and lack of inhibition is likely to contribute to where the learner has the necessary self-confidence to persist in carrying out the task. And then state, development is influenced by the learner's cycle and emotional state. And an alert and relaxed learner is more likely to learn and to succeed than a tired and anxious one. And what about attitude? All right. The difficulty of task, which introduces new sociocultural knowledge and experiences, will be affected by, okay, and then involvement and motivation. Successful task development is more likely where the learner is fully involved. Extrinsic motivation may also play a role. The next is linguistic factors. Level of knowledge and control of grammar, vocabulary, and phonology or orthography required to carry out a task. For example, language resources such as range, grammatical and lexical accuracy, and aspects of language use such as fluency, flexibility, coherence, and then appropriacy and precision. The learner's ability to compensate for gaps. Gaps are the differences in his or her linguistic competences is an important factor in successful task completion for all activities. Okay, this is the table for task condition and constraint. Task condition and constraint divided into two. We are going to talk about interaction and production and then reception. Interaction and production is conditions and constraints affecting the difficulty of interaction and production task. And what about reception? Reception is condition and constraint affecting the difficulty of comprehension task. Next, interaction and production. There are support and time. The provisions of adequate information concerning contextual features and the availability of language assistance can help reduce task difficulty. The first is amount of contextualization provided. The second is extent of which language assistance is provided. And time. The less time available for task preparation and performance, the more demanding the task is likely to be. Temporal aspects to be considered include time available for preparation, time available for execution, duration of turns, and duration of the task. And then interaction and production. There are goal predictability cycle condition. Okay, goal. The greater the amount of negotiation required to achieve the task goal or goals, the more demanding the task is likely to be. The first is convergence or divergence of task goals. The second is learner and teacher attitudes to goals. And predictability. Regular changes in task parameters during the task execution are likely to increase demands or interlocutors. And then the last is cycle conditions. Noise can add the processing demands in interaction. Interference is background noise or a poor telephone line. It's also interaction and production part. It is participant. The first is cooperativeness of interlocutors, and the second is features of speech of interlocutors, for example, rate, accent, clarity, and coherence. The third is visibility of interlocutors, just like accessibility of paralinguistic features in face-to-face communication facilities communication. Okay, and the last is general and communicative competences of interlocutors. That's a fact, yeah. And then next is reception. Reception, there are task support, type of response required, and the last is text characteristics. Okay, task support first. The preparatory phase and then task instruction and then small group setting include task support. And then the second is type of response required. The responses may be non-verbal or no overt response or a simple action such as taking a picture or a verbal response spoken or written may be required. And the last is text characteristics. The first is linguistic complexity. The second is text type. The third is discourse structures. The fourth is cycle presentation. The fifth is length of text. The last is relevance of the learner. All right, everyone, that's all that we can talk in the 7th chapter. I hope that all of you can understand all of the material that I present today. And I also hope that all of them will be useful for all of us. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you on the next chapter. Bye-bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.